I've seen NBA villains before, but this is next level.
Jay, is it normally this crowd is
No.
pre-game speeches?
No, they don't want to hear about everybody who's out.
No, on a serious note,
For over 20 years, I've witnessed my fair share of dirty players, selfish teammates, refs accused of rigging games, and owners fans absolutely despised. But what just happened officially crowned a new number one on the league's most hated list.
11:30 this morning, there were about 100 to 200 Mavericks fans that were pretty upset, and they had a message for General Manager Nico Harrison.
I may not be a Mavericks fan, but even I can't ignore how brutally Nico Harrison just burned this franchise to the ground. By trading away Luka, one of the greatest players of his generation, in his prime, didn't just destroy a team, it ripped the heart out of an entire city overnight. Social media immediately exploded with outrage. Fans weren't just mad. This felt like a generational betrayal.
This new management is putting profit over fans. Profit over fans.
In Marvel terms, Nico didn't just make a bad trade. He pulled out an infinity gauntlet and snapped the soul right out of Dallas. To make matters even more outrageous, Nico tried to defend his catastrophic move with a single excuse: defense wins championships. But let's be real, that wasn't fooling anyone. Who is Nico Harrison? Did he intentionally sabotage his own team? What other shady moves has he made? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of the entire NBA? Let's break it all down and expose the truth.
I've been a master my whole entire life since I've been a baby. This is the worst moment in the history of my life. This is ridiculous.
Fire Nico! Fire Nico!
If you think I'm exaggerating about Nico being the most hated man in NBA history, think again. Because things got so bad, even the NBA had to step in, issuing an unprecedented warning to fans, urging them to not turn violent.
One big concern, though, is just the safety of the players, the front office. Going back to Dallas, we hope fans make the wise decision and remember that this is a game and that lives are far more important.
Allie LaForce wasn't exaggerating, because in reality, people were out to kill him.
Nico Harrison has been subjected to death threats. There have been racial epithets included in some of those. Certainly security is going to be beefed up.
This wasn't quite on the level of the malice at the palace, but if any trade in NBA history had the potential to spark a riot, it was this one. I'll be real here. I had never even heard the name Nico Harrison before this whole mess, and I'm guessing most NBA fans hadn't either. But here's the wild part. This isn't the first time he's completely fumbled the bag. In fact, if you look back a decade ago, he made a mistake so bad it changed sneaker history forever.
Steph Curry actually used to have a shoe deal with Nike, but they fumbled the bag in re-signing him with this lazy mistake.
Nico was a former college and pro basketball player who climbed the ranks at Nike, eventually becoming the vice president of North American basketball operations. His job? Strengthening Nike's grip on the league by building relationships with NBA stars. But here's where it gets crazy. Do you remember the infamous Steph Curry signing disaster? The one that changed sneaker history? Well, guess who was running that meeting?
So the person who was there running the meeting instead of Lynn Merritt, who was famed for being a power broker, a LeBron James advisor at the time, happens to have been Nico Harrison.
After his time at Nike, Nico Harrison landed another dream job, running the Dallas Mavericks. And to his credit, he had some great moves, like signing Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, key pieces that helped propel the team to the 2024 NBA Finals, with Luka leading the charge. But in a stunning twist, the very man who helped build that success became the most despised figure in NBA history, and without a doubt, public enemy number one in Dallas. After that Luka trade, Nico Harrison and the Mavericks franchise scrambled for damage control in a desperate press conference. But instead of easing the outrage, it only poured fuel on the fire. Because here's the thing, he didn't just trade away the Mavericks' golden boy. He stood in front of the city and, in their eyes, flat out lied.
Yeah, I mean, I think the press conference and everything today, you just got the runaround and you got these excuses and, hey, we were worried about this and worried about this. None of these excuses make any sense whatsoever.
Here's why fans are convinced Nico sold them a fake story. Number one, he said he didn't consult anyone about this trade except Rob Pelinka, not even Jason Kidd.
Jay Kidd didn't know about it.
Now, you don't just trade away a player of Luka Doncic's caliber without consulting anyone. It's like selling your house without telling your wife or husband. Number two, he didn't even try to assess Luka's true value by starting a bidding war to maximize the return. Instead, he just handed him over to the Lakers. Luka is the man who led this city to the 2024 NBA Finals and gave them hope. And this is how they repay him? No calls, no bidding war, just a straight-up handoff to the Lakers? That's like proposing on the first date because you just have a feeling. As the general manager, your job is to maximize value and get the absolute best deal for your team. For example, just look at what the Sacramento Kings pulled off. They landed 6 first-round picks and Zach LaVine in exchange for De'Aaron Fox. No wonder Rob Pelinka low-key referred to Nico as nothing more than a tool during the Lakers press conference.
And I want to thank the Dallas Mavericks, led by their GM, Nico Harrison, who was also very instrumental in bringing this opportunity to us.
Number 3, Nico made it seem like Luka might have wanted out during the offseason, but in reality, there was zero evidence to support that. And both he and Luka even confirmed it themselves.
You know, beyond this summer, or that there's a chance you might not agree to the Supermax extension. Did you or anyone on your inner circle indicate that that might be the case?
Absolutely not.
Number 4, Nico claimed this trade makes the Mavericks better.
I think it wasn't really like a point. I think it was like, how do we make our team better?
Let's be real. Luka was the best player on an NBA Finals team just last season. That's about as close to a championship as you get. And at just 25 years old, he's only entering his prime. Remember, Michael Jordan didn't win his first championship until he was 27. Now, imagine if the Bulls had traded away Jordan after he lost to the Pistons at age 25. There are plenty of reasons why this trade doesn't make sense, but what made it even shadier wasn't just the deal itself. It was Nico's own body language while defending it. You see, a body language expert analyzed the press conference and caught something alarming. When Nico claimed he and Jason Kidd were in sync, Kidd's reaction said otherwise.
If there was agreement by Kidd on that, you would expect him to have a little nod as the coach, as the general manager is talking, right? But he didn't. He was stone-faced. He didn't move an inch. Nothing moved on his face, not his lips, not his eye. I don't even think he blinked.
So, not only did Nico trade away the heart and soul of the Mavericks, but the way he did it felt like calculated betrayal. It's hard to believe this was just incompetence. It almost had to be intentional.
Nico Harrison holding that press conference yesterday. You're supposed to talk and make things better, not talk and make things worse. He made things worse.
The backlash has been so explosive that fans aren't just upset. They're demanding an official investigation into Nico Harrison. And in 20 years of watching the NBA, I've only seen fans this furious once before, when referees weren't just rigging games, they were getting locked up for it. Now, the million-dollar question is, can Nico Harrison escape the firestorm he ignited? Well, the only conceivable way he salvages this mess is if the Mavericks somehow win the 2025 NBA championship. But,
Sorry, Harp. The 7 assists for Anthony Davis. Oh, Anthony Davis went down to get hit in the midsection. Şengün.
Anthony Davis had just recovered from an abdominal strain, but in his first game back, as a Maverick, he did what AD does best. Got hurt again. At first, the team downplayed it, calling it nothing serious. A classic PR spin, I thought. And sure enough, it was. Because how do you go from nothing serious to being out indefinitely? It was obvious. The Mavericks PR team was scrambling, throwing out as much positive spin as possible, desperately trying to shield the most hated man in the NBA. The PR disaster got so bad that one of the new owners, Patrick Dumont, felt the need to run a smear campaign against Luka, saying, "If you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, they worked really hard, every day, with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, you shouldn't be part of the Dallas Mavericks." Funny how this is the same guy who looked pretty thrilled when Luka completely dismantled the Timberwolves in the 2024 Western Conference Finals, leading his team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. So, what's next for Patrick? Blame Luka for global warming too? The only other way Nico might escape the blame is if the theories are true. You see, many believe this wasn't just a basketball move, it was an NBA move orchestrated for reasons far beyond the court. Many believe Nico didn't make this decision on his own. He was just ordered to do it, just a pawn set up to take the fall. And if the full truth ever leaks, though let's be real, it probably won't, many fans would see him differently. After all, it's hard to blame a tool for following the orders of its master. And in this case, that master might be Mavericks ownership leveraging the NBA for something far bigger, their gambling empire. Because if the league was really pulling the strings behind the scenes, then Nico Harrison isn't the biggest villain in the NBA. He's just the one they let us see.